G'day folks, welcome to another episode of Learn to Paint TV. Rod Moore from Moore Art School with you again. Got an exciting episode this week. I'm really looking forward to painting this one for you. Now, on the Sunshine Coast here where I live in Queensland, Australia, it's been raining for 3 days solid. We didn't have rain for like 10 months. And now for the last 3 days, it has been absolutely belting down with rain. There's a river out the back, there's flooding everywhere. And so I thought that's probably not a bad time for us to be painting a boat, right? So we're going to do a boat. Now this particular boat is one that I found in my travels. There's a little town called Maryborough, sort of to the north of where I live here in Queensland, probably about 2 hours drive. And it's where the Mary River meets the ocean there. And it's a beautiful part of Australia. In fact, Maryborough used to be the biggest, I believe, town or city in Queensland at one time, just because of the port there on the river. So I was driving around some of the little towns around the mouth of the river, and I found this beautiful old sailing boat, which was sort of low tide, so it was marooned, and it was leaning on one side and catching the light. Let's get busy with step one. Now, I've got a 16 by 20 canvas up on the board. I'm using the Acrylic interactive acrylic paints, as we always do. I've got ultramarine blue and alizarin crimson. Great colour there for us to mix. And I've got a scruffy old flat brush there. You can see it's had a better days, but don't let that put you off. I'll just get a little bit of water and let's get underway with step one. And I've got a reference of the photo pinned to my board here, which I'll be referring to particularly in the drawing phase. And first thing first is to get that boat in. Now that boat, the bottom part of the boat is around about 1/4, 1/5 maybe. So I'm thinking it's sitting on a plane that runs somewhere through there. I'm not going to be too concerned if it's not 100% accurate, but my feeling says that it's sitting around about there on that plane there, and it is leaning sort of forward, so it's got this nice shape to it. And that's the tricky part with boats, is getting the shapes right. If you can work out the shapes of boats, then they'll give you endless hours of painting pleasure. Okay, I'll run that up to there. And just concentrating while I get a rough shape in here. This brush is probably making my life a little bit more difficult than it needs to be, but I'll persist with it, seeing as I started with it. Okay, now on the front of this boat here we have, it's catching a nice little bit of light here. Now, I have started painting this one in oils, and I might go back and finish that painting. I just got distracted with other projects and things, which happens. Okay, so this one looks like it's got plenty of good accommodation. Now, I'm not trying to create a photo here. Always keep that in mind, that we're just looking to create a representation. We just want to get down some of the key features here and make sure that the shapes are reasonably close, is what we're really after. So just keep that in mind. It's catching a nice little bit of light there. It's got a tall mask, which really appealed. And I'm going to obviously come in and we'll work on the shape and the details and getting the feel of that boat right. It does have some reflection, which obviously was appealing. And okay, so there is a pier that runs through here. And again, it's all catching in the light. It was really quite special. A bit of reflection there. So that's our waterline. There's a post that's sticking up out the back. It's another part of the pier that runs through there with some steps down. A couple more posts. Okay, and there's a few other things going on in behind here, like there's a building and some description. So I'll just put in some loose references for that. Okay, and there's a gate over here. Do we need a gate? Let's pop a gate in. I might just paint that out if I don't like it. It's a bit of a gate there. Another post there, and there, and there. Okay, so that's roughly getting that in. Now, this is probably the hardest part of this whole painting, is just getting a feel for that little cluster of activity. That's where our focus is going to be. In hindsight, I might have brought that up just a little bit higher, but I think it's going to work fine. Okay, so now around that, we then have a couple of layers of bushes and trees. We have, if I just get a little bit more blue into that mix, we've got out the back. Okay, now don't be a slave to the photo. Okay, just create a nice appealing sort of tree line there. Okay, now step number 2, I'm going to switch to my bigger brush. I'm going to start off with our sky, and I'll work down and around these details. So my big flat bristle hairbrush, and I've added cerulean blue to my palette here because the sky is quite a cool sort of blue. So that's what I'm going to go for, is a nice cool color, and it's quite light. So don't be, a big mistake I've seen a lot of beginners make is that they make their skies just that little bit too dark. And this sky is quite a light one. So we'll start off just roughing it in. Now notice my brush strokes, I'm varying them around. Oh, a bit too much water in that brush, but not to worry. I'll just vary the strokes around a little bit, make them a little bit random. That just creates some life and some movement into the sky. We don't want this to be a dead, dull sky. Okay, which is very easy to create. We want to have a little bit of life because otherwise this sky is going to look a little bit bland. So just keep that brush moving, keep plenty of paint on the brush. I'll just take a little pinhead of the red just to get some excitement happening in there. Little pinhead of that alizarin crimson always adds excitement. Now, I've got this tree line here, but don't be a slave to that. But a little bit darker. So the easiest way to do that, of course, is we now go to a warmer blue. So we're using the cooler blue, the cerulean blue. Now we're just going to come and we're just going to use the ultramarine, which is a little bit warmer. Okay. You can see that mauve there against what we had before. Okay. Just get a little bit more blue into that. When I put that there, now notice I'm just going to scrub this in. I want to get nice rough edges for random sort of tree shapes, okay, up there. But notice it also that it stands out now against that sky. It's warmer, it's darker in value. All the principles for creating aerial perspective in a painting are right there. The values and saturation of colour, so important. And if you don't quite understand that, then I really recommend that you get the colour mixing course. Okay, now these little trees in here and in here, just want to bring those forward again. So you can see that's quite, if I put that there against the background trees, you can see it's quite a lot darker there. Okay, and we're just going, this is a sort of mangrovey, swampy type trees that you get around the rivers. Okay, just got to watch out for the crocodiles, especially on these mud flaps. Yellow ochre, alizarin crimson, but I will put in some ultramarine blue. You'll see how much there. Why? I want it a little bit darker. Okay, I don't want it to be a bright tone, like a bright orange. I want it to be that sort of murky. Add a little bit of the cerulean just to tie it in with the sky. Okay, that's a bit better. A little bit more red, a little bit more blue. So I want a dark tone at this stage with it. Get a little bit of water just to make it flow better, and let's just run that in. So this is all in shadow, this part. Right through to there. The darker the mud flaps, because the reason why it is that tone in the water through here is because the water is shallow and that mud, this exposed part, but there's obviously mud areas in here as well, and that's all showing through the water. So we'll just start off by blocking it in, a general sort of tone for that. And it keeps shifting. There's a lot of shifts in colour and tone here, which we need to just work our way through. But for the moment, we'll just block in a general tone there. It gets a little bit bluer. I'll add a little bit of cerulean blue into that. I'm just going to make it go a little bit greener, of course, but that's okay. Don't worry about the details in there at this stage. Let's just get that colour down. This is not quite looking in the right shape here now. I'll just run that up a little bit higher. And pick up a clean brush, little flat brush there. Take some white and some cerulean blue. Okay, and just introduce it into the dirty tone. Okay, just so it's not a happy out of the tube blue. Grey it back a little. Okay, and then that is going to just sit in there. We can put some highlights and things onto it later on if we need to. It's picking up a little bit of sunlight, or reflection of the sky, sorry, it's not really sunlight. So there's blue through there, like so. And then there's darker blue in through there, so I'll just introduce a little bit of that into there. I'll just get a touch of water just to make it all blend together. Okay, and there's the shadow version of it. And we'll put some more highlights onto that water in time, in step 3. But for now, a little bit of trap water here and there up on the sandbank. G'day folks, welcome back. This is now step 3 of the Moore method of painting, which is all about the highlights, details and finishing touches. And I think what's important here is that we spend a bit of time just in this focal area, getting the boat, just getting the shape a bit more defined and starting to map in our shadow and light and so on, and just get this area here working. And then we can come in and highlight some of the trees and water and so on and start to bring everything into balance. And that runs down there. So this is all in shadow, this side of the boat here. Okay. That's going to run down into there a bit more. I'll dip that down a little bit. It probably doesn't want to be dipping down quite that much. Something a bit more like that. Okay, then this section up in here, where the cabins are and so on, it's more of a brown tone. So I'll just give the brush a little bit of a clean, not too much. So this side wall here are the cabins, and underneath there is a brown tone, slightly darker back there. So we'll go with the red and the yellow. Mix those up and we'll add blue into that. Okay. Now that's probably the right tone for underneath here, I'd say. And in there. A little bit warmer. Up top. So that runs through there, and this runs back up that way. this is the little tricky part in here. So it's quite a bit lighter because it's catching the sun. I don't need to put the final highlight on it just yet, but just get it established. Run that through to there. Like so. It gets just a touch lighter again, so a bit more white, a bit more yellow. And that little bit in there is darker. Should have put that in first, but not to worry. Just around about the same time as this. So they're just shapes. I'm getting them the right shape. If I don't get them perfect, I'm not going to be upset as long as I get them close. And you know, we're not cameras as artists, so as long as we get it reasonably close, I think that's what we're looking for. I'm just going to run a little bit of shadow in there. Okay, now there is, around about there is some sort of canopy, but you can't really see much of it. So I'll just mix up a dark there and get a bit of water into that. And it runs around about from there. And it runs that way there. And there's a few different bits and pieces in there. I'll put a few little marks for at the moment. Now that canopy then has a white, something white over the top. Get that in, take some of that white, a little bit toned with a bit of pink in there. That goes like that. There is a antenna thing there. There is another piece of something there. On the roof here there's boxes and several bits and pieces in there, which I'm just going to get a little hint of. Now take this dark and let's run that along here. So this is probably a little bit more detailed work than what I'd normally do at this stage of painting. However, because this is, you know, we're painting in here our main center of interest, and it is quite detailed. So I've sort of gone a step beyond what I might normally do at this stage. You know, ordinarily I'd say I'm getting to detail too soon. However, I feel that we need to set the stage here a little bit in order for us to make sense of the painting. So that's what we're doing. And then we'll go back and we'll highlight a few other bits and pieces soon. Once we get some of this established. Post right there, one right there. Okay. Just pop some highlight on those. So, some sort of pipe or something out the back there. There is a sign on this gate. Sit around about there. You can now come and seek out a new highlight colour, which is going to be a greeny, goldy tone. A little bit lighter than that perhaps. Okay. And we've hardly any paint on the brush. Now we can just, and see that's working just so much better than what it was before. If I leave plenty of the shadow tone, a few little bits and pieces in here I think would help. But you know, they're just dots and dashes and marks. They're not anything really. Now that mask is, you know, obviously it's a bit clunky. It's a bit fat in parts. It's not 100% what we had in mind. However, it actually doesn't work too badly in the painting there. So I'm not even going to bother trying to correct it. That's pretty much all we need to do with this one. I think it's a nice, I don't want to make it too complicated. I want to make it something that's achievable and doable for you at home. And I think that works. You know, it's a good little painting. There's some interesting things in there. There's lots of little details which I've indicated, but I haven't really gone to too much effort to really state it strongly. I've gone for more of a subtle understated, just marks here and there. Okay. And I think the big key that made this painting come together was darkening that row of trees in the background there. And that made all this center area here come alive a little bit more, which is what we want. So have a go at this one. Take your time. Obviously this center of focus here, the boat and the shed and the wharf and everything around it, that's the hard part. So take your time with that. But it's definitely a good little painting to have a go at, especially if you're like me, you like boats and so on. It's been a bit of fun getting it down, and it's not perfect, but it works. And that's the thing. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Learn to Paint TV. Make sure you drop by our website at learntopaint.tv. You can see all the past episodes there. And if you want to see the full-length versions of the Learn to Paint TV, because obviously in the TV format that we're producing, it's only about 20 to 25 minutes, but the full painting takes around about an hour to 2 hours. If you want to see the full painting of any of the episodes, you can take a trial of the Learn to Paint Club for $1, and that'll get access to all the past episodes of Learn to Paint TV, the full-length versions, and a whole lot of other courses and painting projects as well. So it might be worth checking that out. Hope you've enjoyed this episode. I'll see you next time on Learn to Paint TV. Cheers.